Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the zoo. The minions with me tonight are SoraLuna.
Good evening.
Cryptic. This is
He's
when
here.
you unmute and say hello, Cryptic.
I didn't do
He's
it.
here in spirit.
I'm sorry. I didn't do it.
The gray zone still, at least until probably next Wednesday, JenTMaxi.
Yep.
And I'm the keeper for the night, Sanguine. And next week I'll be able to start saying, of course, I'm the keeper for the night, Sanguine. Because, as I've mentioned with every other show, we are going to have a bit of a scheduling change coming up. I'm going to no longer be Wednesdays, because one of our original keepers, in fact, our very first keeper, the One-Ton Hammer, is going to be returning to be a scheduled weekly keeper, and he's going to be doing a show with JenTMaxi and Terry Diamantis on Wednesdays. It'll be his own kind of thing with that. He might occasionally have additional people on, but for the most part, it's going to be the three of them.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
As everyone knows, about 2 weeks ago now, Prospero stepped down from being a scheduled weekly keeper. She's still a keeper, she's still a backup keeper, and you'll still see her on streams, but she's just not able to commit to doing it every week for the time being. So she'll be taking a step back from that position. It will become Wildcard Thursdays until we find someone to take on Thursdays permanently. And then Fridays will no longer be Wildcard, because 2 Wildcards is a bit excessive, and also I'm a greedy bastard and I want my day. So I'm going to be taking over Fridays permanently.
Yay!
Yay!
So again, just a quick recap: One-Ton Hammer Wednesdays, Wildcard Thursdays, and Sanguine Fridays. And I'll be top and tailing the show with that again, as I have every night except for last night. I forgot to do it at the start of the show, but I remembered at the end. But with that, how are all of you doing today?
I'm good. I have to remember to mention some things to Hammer, because we keep missing each other on the Twitter, because I do Twitter, but I don't stay on Twitter all day. I really don't. So I have to let him know that, like, next time I see him, or if he's here, because I know he usually watches anyway. But Hammer, if you ever want to get a hold of me and you're using Twitter, just so you know, I'm usually up for P-Dog. I'm usually up to share his stream. So if you leave a message around, like, I think that's like 10 o'clock your time. Yeah, I think that's 10 o'clock your time. If you leave me a message around that time, I will always get it, and I will get you back. I'll get you back. But we keep missing each other. So, like, they don't use Discord. Terry and him don't use the Discord that often. So I want to make sure that they have the ability to get a hold of me, because I do Twitter. I just don't do Twitter all day. I will go on Twitter long enough to share streams. Like, I think I shared us. I have to double check, because sometimes Twitter is like, yeah, you shared this. And then sometimes it's like, no, you didn't. Yeah, I did. All right. But I'm always on long enough to share, and then I don't stay on longer, because I just find Twitter really toxic. So, yeah, I mean, it's good for sharing, and that's what I do use it for. Like, if I go on for a few seconds onto Twitter, it's usually with the hopes that maybe I just missed something, because a lot of people don't utilize the Discord anymore, and it's kind of a shame. I know people are thinking I'm throwing shade, but Discord is a good way to get the word out that you're doing a stream.
And yeah, Twitter is a lot like money and power. It's an amplifier. If someone has darker demons, those darker demons come to the fore. If someone is just ridiculously wholesome, yeah, Twitter's ridiculously wholesome for them as well. It is entirely an amplification, because there are some people that I watch their feeds and it's just like, oh my god, you sweet summer child, I need to protect you. And then other people, I would drown you in a trough of shit if I could.
Well, it's also, you never really know what triggers things like raids, like the stuff that we were going through the last 2 weeks. You
Yep.
really don't know what caused that. Sometimes it's just somebody saw you on Twitter. Like I know with Bloodwing, they get him a lot because his show is called the Redneck Radio. So they just automatically assume that he's going to be a hardcore conservative. And is he conservative? Yes. Is he hardcore? I would never say that about Bloodwing, ever. You know, like he's way too much of a softie. And he's reasonable. He's always been willing to talk things out.
Straightforward, sort of salt of the earth type of like common sense advice and fun stories, which is not what they're looking for with a name like that. So
no. And he just so happens to have such an amazing accent to go with it, you know? So
I don't know about y'all, but he calls me, was it Ching Chong Chinaman all the time? So I don't
yeah, but
well, it doesn't help that you change your name every time that you go to watch his show, so that's what pops up.
Look, it's not my fault. I ask him every single time. I ask him if his sister was his wife. I mean, it was.
oh, yeah, you deserve that. You deserve that, Ben. Yeah, sorry.
Like I said, I think the main problem is just the fact that every time that you donate, you put the name Slant Eyes Horny as your donation name, which just seems a little bit excessive.
Oh, if y'all thought that was bad, right?
it gets worse.
Yeah, it gets worse. It does. A friend of ours stream, right? Y'all know Big Dro, right?
Yep.
He's very innocent in his, I guess his persona, but I know he's not. I've donated under his name, and it'll be like, you know, I was like, I would donate under his name, like, he likes to be pegged. He likes to, you know, reach around, all that stuff. I have no apologies for it. And then Big Dro, I was like, it's not me. I'm like, oh man, it has your name, buddy. I am a homer human being for that, so I do not apologize for nothing.
Why do I get the feeling like a good chunk of the time when it was the Ghost Poo and AAA and they were reading super chats from each other, it was you?
It was me. It was.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
Wasn't sure if it was you and someone else or just you the entire time.
Trucker does it too. Trucker does it too. Like between you and him, they like to gang up on Big Dro, but it's mostly meant to get Blind Girl to read it out, or to get her thing to read it out, or to get me to read it out. Because sometimes I join her to give her some extra tips, and I'm like, okay, what dirty shit do they want me to say?
Nice.
Earlier today, I do racist. So I do jokes that are bad, but I know my limits where they don't get banned, right? It's like some people, they don't know that limit, right? So I do enough, like for Alex, right? Fucking Al, I call him Al all the time. I was saying a joke. I was like, oh shit, I should be making a darky joke right now, but I don't have my loincloth on right now.
Nice.
So he knows the context, right, of the joke. But it's not enough for him to get banned. You know what I mean?
That just makes me think of. Sadly, we will no longer have a person summoning up such great quotes as, so, do you chaps still chuck spears at each other?
We lost a great one. We did.
Yeah, he was good.
Don't stay here too long, lads, or else you'll get all slitty-eyed. Just the shit that man said, it was glorious.
The last couple times I was like, hey Al, since you're a quarter darky, are you a quarter Congolese, you know, or do you have a quarter Ebola? He didn't like that very much. Yeah.
That's horrible.
I know. I see, and I say that shit to him like in private chat and everything. I was like, hey darky, here's your quarter reparation. Wait, I'm Asian, so you gotta give him back the other quarter.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm a horrible person, but you know, I when I know somebody's on stream and they do their thing, you know, I don't get them booted. I might be edgy to the point of edge, but not, to a point where I can get them kick off.
See, the confusing thing about horrible people is that some of the best people are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I teased him a little bit today too. So he was on Monkey's stream this morning, and they were just kind of talking about one of the latest guys that's been going after him for his streams is one of the Shani fans.
Going after Alex or Monkey?
Going after Alex. So one of Shani's fans is going after him and implied that his house was dirty, even though he's never actually done a video in his house. He's never actually shown anybody what his house looks like. It's an outside shed that he uses for his office. And the only time that you can really look at his videos and think that like he was a little bit messy was when he was moving things around, like when he was redoing his office. And it's like, well, yeah, when you're redoing things, you sometimes are a little bit messy in between, but usually you clean up. The kids aren't living in there, so who gives a shit? But he was upset because they were implying child abuse, and I was like, so I wrote in the chat, I was like, so by child abuse, do they mean when you get into arguments with these mental midgets on Twitter? Because that's different.
Yeah, the great thing about Shiny fans is that the detection method for them's stupid simple. All you have to do is set a glass of water. Once it starts rippling, one of them's approaching.
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah, I don't
wasn't expecting the Jurassic Park reference there. So
she is something. She is something else. So I generally don't watch his stuff for that, and he knows. Like I told him, like, listen, I love you. I come to visit you whenever I get a chance to, but there's certain levels of nasty that I just don't need to know.
Yeah, she's just an absolute garbage fire.
But the odd time that you do visit, just long enough to kind of get an idea of what's going on there, she's just really nasty. She's really nasty, and somebody should probably go and save her kids, and honestly, go get her some help.
Yeah, and it's because of that she's less entertaining to watch the drama around, just because you're going, okay, she's legitimately unwell and doing fucked up shit. Whereas when you're watching like shit about Hootie Beauty and ALR, that's just, oh my God, give me a bag of popcorn.
Well, at best, maybe there's a significant other involved, and yeah, fair enough. Maybe they're shitty as a partner. But I mean, honestly, if you're online with these people, you kind of know who your spouse is at this point. So I mean, you get some sympathy, but you only get sympathy so far because you tied your knot. Children, on the other hand, never tie their knots. It's always somebody else who ties those knots for them. Always.
Yeah, the child has no choice in the matter.
No. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't still love their mom, because absolutely they should, and she probably does love them. But the thing is she's got some issues, and she should be taking care of those issues. And if the people around her aren't helpful in that, then that's when people should be stepping in. And that's why I don't think YouTube should be supporting her, or any platform should be supporting her. And I'm sorry, darling. I'm not meaning to attack you. I don't know you personally, but everything that I've seen of you shows of somebody who really should get help. And if you did, and you came back later and was like, look, I did this, that would be something to put online.
You want to do something, get on a lighter note?
Yep.
Yes.
You guys, you know the name Frank Reynolds, right?
No.
Yes, it sounds familiar.
You remember, like, what's that? The TV show, like, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Yeah.
Danny DeVito's character?
Okay.
Yep, okay.
So, a guy in Wyoming, his name is Frank Reynolds, ironically, got trapped in his, underneath a tractor trailer, right?
Oh.
Yeah. You know how he survived?
How?
Beer and fucking goddamn bottled water.
Nice.
He had a cooler. for 2 days. He survived on nothing but beer and bottled water.
Yeah,
Nice.
I could see
Did
it.
he
I
at
mean,
least have a good beer, or was it piss water?
I didn't say what kind of beer it was, but yeah, he survived. He was 53 years old. So middle age, But I thought that was.
I could see that though. Because I mean, beer. I know it's just liquid, but I mean, it's got a lot of calories in it. It's like, I know the joke is it's like bread, but
Oh, there's certain beers that are like bread. Guinness is liquid bread.
and there's actually quite a lot of sugar in that too. Like, I mean, when they did the comparison to wine and how many eclairs you're actually eating, you'd be better off with the eclairs, basically.
With the puff pastry.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Pure sugar.
Yeah, like I said, when it comes to a nice hearty beer that just has all kinds of good shit packed in it, Guinness. You can't really go wrong, which is the reason why it was marketed as a health elixir for a little bit.
That's actually one of those things that I've had to look into because of my my brother. I mean, not that he was really much of a beer drinker as it is. His poison is more pop related. Getting him to switch over 100% to diet pop, he's actually doing it. I am giving him credit. He is actually doing it. Like, I mean, last month he failed twice, which wasn't that bad, compared to what he was before. And this month he hasn't gone back at all. So, credit where it's due. He still has a failing when it comes to candy, and I can't help him there, because if he orders food and he buys himself candy, I can't stop that.
Yeah.
But God, sugar's terrible.
Isn't it just the worst? Makes it, but it's like,
it's so tasty though,
really,
too.
I know, it just makes you sad. It's like, but you're so good, but like, yeah,
I was
all your health problems
I
derive
was
from
going to
this.
bring up food at some point, Sanguine. I mean, I might leave that till later, because when we do food, tends to go everywhere. But I have some cherries I want to make some stuff with, and I'm wondering about the introduction of liquor to it, because I do have some.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can introduce all kinds of liquor to cherries.
Yes.
You can do whiskeys, you can do gins, you can do rums.
Yeah, I think that is a rum.
And speaking of alcohol and fruits, I had a drink earlier on, well, really more last night, to use up some of my fruit that I vacuum sealed with liquor. So I had raspberries, blackberries, and strawberries that had all been vacuum sealed with Jameson whiskey.
Nice.
So I blitzed up the berries, which, oh my god, I don't know what the fuck is about it, but when you vacuum seal berries, their flavor just, holy shit. It goes from, this is a strawberry when you bite into a fresh one, to I smell, taste, and every sensation that I'm getting is just screaming strawberry from this. What the fuck? It becomes almost sensory overload strawberry. But I did those berries that I mixed with a green apple cider. So I had a mixed berry James Fucked Up, which was amazing. And due to the amount of alcohol that I put in to preserve the berries, it was like a 4 or 5 fingers James Fucked Up that I made. Oh god, it was good. And for those who don't know what a James Fucked Up is, a James Fucked Up is whiskey and cider. Specifically, it's Jameson whiskey and cider. If you're doing it with Johnny Walker, then it becomes a Johnny Fucked Up. It's like one of my favorite names for anything.
I can understand why. Yeah. Now that's
it's effectively the cider version of a Boilermaker.
it's Yeah, I kind of get it with the air vac. It's oddly enough with frozen, it's a little bit similar. Like it's different, but it's a little bit similar in the sense that like it just absolutely softens the berry. So if you ever want to make like a really quick, cheap cambote, freeze your berries, and then when you go to thaw them, just put the sugar in when it's frozen, and then take it out to thaw. And then when it thaws, it just kind of melts into the sugar, and it just does it itself. My grandmother used to do that all the time with like she's old German, because she's from Austria. And her favorite thing was picking berries. You know, so she always used to make her own berry jams with strawberries and things like that. And that's what she used to do with some of her strawberries. And honest to God, on vanilla ice cream, it was perfect. My mom is gonna have sorrows this year though, because like last year was the last year that she had her BC place, and her BC place was her free berry farm. Because she had like 18 raspberry bushes, she had 13 blueberry bushes, she had 5 gooseberry bushes, she had a whole field full of free wild blackberries. They weren't like, it was owned by a lot. So the people who lived there, or at least owned it, were like, please pick them because they don't want bears coming down. So you know, my mom would just pick those as well. And it was great. You know, they had a Macintosh apple tree. They had a plum tree. The cherry tree was kind of useless because the birds kind of got to it before. There's no chance for them getting those berries. But honestly, if you live in BC and there's no reason why you have a hard time getting cherries. If you have a hard time getting cherries, it's a you problem.
And that just reminded me of something from when I was little. My backyard neighbor had grapevines, and they would make homemade grape jam and jelly.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Oh, it was fantastic. They didn't make that much because they just had a couple vines that were actually able to produce, and they weren't always able to produce because it was in Pennsylvania, not exactly grape country, but they were able to get enough that they could make a few jars like every other year, and it was just absolutely amazing getting the fresh grape jam, jelly, preserves, whichever version you wanted. And they would give it to the neighbors that they liked, and they liked my family, so we would get a jar or two every so often when they could make them. It was beautiful.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want to experiment with that. So we're kind of getting closer to the season where and I have mixed feelings on them, but it's coming back to the season of the cotton candy grapes.
Oh, my coworker loves those so much.
I have mixed feelings on them. Like sometimes they're good and sometimes they're really ratchet.
I see. The thing is that I don't understand her hype over them. They're sweet grapes.
Yep.
And that's about it. Like if you want a good sweet grape, get a muscat grape, right? Or the other really like tiny sort of like ice wine champagne grapes that you sometimes get here if you're lucky.
It's if you get a really good cotton candy grape, it's not the initial flavor, it's the after flavor. The after flavor absolutely tastes like you were just eating a bag of cotton candy from like the fair. It's weird. It's really weird.
Then perhaps I've never had a proper one because all I ever remember it just being sweet and that's it.
I don't know if it's like a certain level of ripe or something. I don't know because we get them from you guys. So by the time we get them, they're probably like, you know, I mean, they're still good. But honestly,
I'm sure it's a level of they always pick it too early and then, pardon me, it sits forever on the shelf.
Yeah. I think it could be something like that because I've had them where I didn't get anything from it. And then I've had them where it was a nice flavor. Like it actually came across as like, yeah, I just had a bag of cotton candy. And then there were other times where it was so overpoweringly flavored that it just felt fake.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'd almost sprayed them with something as opposed to it actually being from the grape. So I'm wondering if that might be a mixture of all three things, because it could be a possibility of all three things.
See, one of my favorite types of grapes that I'm able to find every so often are. Have you guys had Moondrop grapes?
I have not heard of. Oh,
these are the ones that are like the
oblong,
kind of oblong purple ones, right? Yeah. I have those. Those are good. Yeah.
Hi, Preston.
The oblong ones that kind of look like someone strangled a Smurf and then cut off their fingers.
Yeah. Those are good. You can find them here. It's just that it's one of those grapes that if you're not on the ball and buying them, they're gone.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, they are delicious and they're perfect for roasting. You cannot think of a better roasting grape.
Okay. Now that's going to lead me back to my experiment. So this might end up failing, and I'm okay with that. Like, you know, it might be a one-time deal, but I do want to try seeing if I can make like a kind of jelly or at least something for a tart with the cotton candy grapes, because I've kind of been working with the cherries in that regard, and cherries are beautiful for baking with. In all honesty, like I'm kind of obsessed with making cherry pies right now, just because I didn't realize how easy it was to make the mixture for it. But I'm pretty sure I could do the same thing with the grapes.
For the grapes, if you want a really flavorful way of making a stupid, simple jam or preserve of them, I would recommend start by roasting the grapes because they get kind of jammy just from the roasting. Then, just like how you would do with pretty much any other jam or jelly, you know, the syrup making part of that process, right? Mix up some of that, mix in and kind of crush the roasted grapes into that. Then let the flavors marry together a bit more. That would be ridiculous because you'd get, when you roast the grapes, they get almost like a slight caramely, jammy taste to them. And then that in the jam, so you get this caramely note with the lovely, thick goodness of jam, the little bits of grape because you aren't blitzing them, but just kind of mashing them after they've roasted. So you get little hunks here and there to round it out a little bit. Spread that on fresh bread. Oh, God, that would be amazing. Add in some pectin in order to thicken it up to make it a proper jam or jelly or preserve. Or if you want, you can just go the compote route and not bother with adding in pectin and have it that way.
Okay.
Yum.
See, the other one that I was exploring, and I don't know if you know this one at all, Sora, but I mean, I know you're a little bit Romanian, but I discovered just a little bit. But I discovered a neighbor's recipe, but I know they like to share everything with everybody, so it's called Pastilla or Pastilla pastry, and it's made with 3 ingredients: apples, sugar, and egg whites. And it's supposed to be like a marshmallowy texture, and it's almost like a cake. So you basically bake the apples and make like a mash with it, and then you mix it with your egg whites that you've beaten with your sugar.
Okay.
And you beat it until it becomes like a thick cream, and then it's a slow so you'll keep some of that cream for later. And it's a slow bake. You bake it for about like 5 to 6 hours on the lowest setting, and then once you take that out, you're going to end up letting it cool enough that you can lift it off, and it ends up breaking into 3 pieces. And you use the leftover cream to kind of bind it. You bake it for another hour, and it's called a pastilla. And I know that in different the different European countries? Because I looked it up because I watched I watched Emmy's channel do it.
Yeah,
so
it's Zephyr in a bunch of other nations.
Yes, yeah. So I looked it up, and like they do other fruits, but you have to add pectin to it because the idea is like the apples that they use have like the most pectin that you can get in an apple. Like they're very starchy, and they said for us, if I were to do it, I would probably need to go with a Granny Smith and maybe add some pectin to it. Just because it basically makes a meringue out of apples.
Yep.
Cool.
And you have to. There's a channel that did a video on how to make Zephyr that I watched a while ago, and I'm trying to remember. I want to say it's Boris did how to make Zephyr.
Okay.
And are you familiar with Boris?
I think I am. It's one of those things where YouTube just hides people. You know, you see them once, and then you're like, where the hell did they go?
Yeah, Boris, the best way that I can explain him is he was a gaming channel that just went whole hog into the I'm a crazy Russian and started cooking shit while being a crazy Russian.
That's awesome, actually.
So he has videos like, can you make this dish with nothing but an axe? And rather than having knives or anything like that, he's just using an axe to cut everything that he needs cut. Then he'll make like a snacking sandwich of doctor's sausage and buttered bread as he's waiting for the rest of it to cook, and he'll do that with an axe as well. And just weird shit like that. But he does Russian food, so he's made everything from really simple things, like I said, the buttered bread. That's as simple as it can be. Up to he's done how to make kvass and Zephyr and a bunch of other dishes, showing how to make them entirely from scratch.
Okay. I should, yeah.
Absolutely mental, weird dude, fun as shit to watch his cooking stuff, though, because it's never normal, and the entire time he's just pounding vodka. It is beautiful. But yeah, those marshmallows, the Zephyr, look absolutely beautiful when I've seen them.
Yeah, I was really fascinated with it. Like, I told my mother about it, too. And I was just like, if I do it, I might do it at her place just because I don't really have the right equipment for it. Just because it does need to be on a high whip. You know, like in the olden days, they used to have slaves do that, and the slaves would have to do it for 48 hours. I'm like, well, I don't have that.
We're talking Eastern Bloc. They were the slaves. They didn't really have that many.
So, yeah. So I'm gonna go to her place to use her machine, which I think she's okay with it. It's one of those things where, like, in terms of the sugar content, there's going to be a lot because there's apples. Even like the amount of sugar that they add to it isn't really that much, but the sugar from the apples itself is just what it is. But I was like, in terms of a dessert, I'm okay with that. You know, I've been working out a lot, Sarah. I'm at the point in my diet where I'm doing a high workout kind of stuff. So I'm like, you know, something with like a lot of sugar isn't that bad as long as I moderate it.
Oh, that's lucky, yeah.
Yeah.
And just make sure that you powder them, because they stick like a son of a bitch, apparently, if you don't powder them once they're done. They get ridiculously tacky. But
I'm still with you, but I'm sitting outside with my brother.
Yep.
Great.
So one thing that we were talking about just before the show went live was we were talking about old school video games and modern video games as well. And we had brought up Myst. And Sora had an opinion on Myst that she was talking about. Do you want to go into it live on air, Sora?
Sure. The part where about visualizing the map.
And just for people that haven't played Myst before
Oh yeah.
and don't really know what it is, hearing the explanation of you trying to play it the first time, probably a good entry into Myst.
So I won't go in explaining what the game is or have Sanguine explain it yet. Just to know that going around an empty area looking for things and feeling like something's going to attack you when nothing is, and then coming across lots of levers and monuments and all sorts of miniature ship type things around this island, hearing things click, knowing instinctively that you have changed something, but not being able to figure out what the hell you've just done, and going around in circles for hours until you realize, oh, you're on a map. And the only way to visualize the map is to draw it out on a piece of paper or remember it in your brain, and then going back and flipping switches over and over again until you figure out what you've done. Like maybe raising a ship model that was in pieces before.
Mm-hmm.
Finding, I think, isn't it something to do with daylight? One of them, like,
Yep, there's a
you
light
can
puzzle.
change. Yeah, you can change light. It's something else. It is a puzzler. It was one of the earliest, I think, walking exploration games / puzzle games where you have to think in 4D. Yes, I am a little salty, Geodes. It took like 10 hours to get the first, probably 10 minutes of stupid game.
And if you've never played it, and you are at a certain point where you're just going, okay, I think I've tried fucking everything. You start trying insane shit like, can I use the lever on this book? Can I use the book on this window? Can I use the lever on the window? Can I beat the fucking ship that I've made with the lever?
When you're inside the building too, it all depends on where you put the book, right? Because there's 2 pedestals. It wasn't there like 2 pedestals? Yeah. So that changes the environment. You're dealing with basically portals to different world island things. And then the coolest part of it is you collect these pages, and these pages have like video essays from your brothers or something like that, and they're both insane, and you don't know who the real insane one is, and those are actual videos integrated, like of the real life person. It's
FMV. Yeah, Myst is the almost archetypal old school FMV point and click, and it's amazing for it. Another game that's in a similar vein, or another game series, is the Journeyman Project trilogy, which I just recently bought again. I had Journeyman Project 3 when I was younger. I had 2, but my version of 2 was fucked, and I was stuck in a maze until a robot killed me. And I figured out how to progress past that. I tried it, and I was still stuck in a maze until a robot killed me, because my game had a glitch in it, and I couldn't ever escape the maze, even doing what you were supposed to do in order to escape the maze. But Journeyman Project 3 is a really weird and cool game as well, because you're jumping around different locations and through time. So the game, for the most part, takes place in 3 specific locations: Atlantis, El Dorado, and
Opinionated Scotsman.
I'm trying to remember the name of the Asian Shangri-La. So you jump between those 3 cities, trying to figure out how to do shit so that you can get out of the cities before, well, one of them before it's absolutely destroyed. And figure out the rest of the story of the game as you go. all of them ridiculously fun. All of them you're just constantly... Or, they're... I say ridiculously fun. They're ridiculously fun in FMV point-and-click fashion, where you're fascinated, what the fuck is going on? What the fuck is this story? And where do I use this goddamn lever?
Watch out.
Because there's always going to be something that you're going, I have this, I've had it since, like, the first minute of being on this fucking island. What do I do with you? And you'll start talking to items that they can't respond because, first of all, they're items. Second of all, they're items in a fucking video game. You aren't even talking to it. You're talking to your computer screen, which you're trying to act like you're talking to this fucking item through the computer screen.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. And this came up because we were talking about how a lot of people don't like to think anymore. And it's not just in one area or another. There's a lot of people that just genuinely would rather offload the burden of thinking onto other people.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to have to look into something themselves. They want people to tell them. They don't want to have to figure something out. They just want the answer given to them by someone else. They don't want to have to deal with moral quandaries. They just want someone to go, this is the right way, go do this.
Well, it feels safer that way.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to do the work either. Like, I mean, you could create characters with character, but then you'd actually have to give them things to do, and then you'd have to actually explore those things on what it is that they're wanting to do. And they don't want to actually look at what character actually means.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a real reflection of the people who are pushing that kind of stuff. Like, I think they're afraid that they don't have any, to be honest.
Well, a good chunk of them, I'm willing to bet that they don't, and I'm taking them at face value when I say that, because they will straight up effectively tell you that they don't have character. I've said this many times before. If you go to just a bar that Joe Schmo from Idaho would hit, that the average worker in your area hits, and you start talking to someone from that bar, and you ask them a very simple starting question. So, tell me about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
They'll start telling you what their job is, what their family situation is, if they're married, shit like that, hobbies, things that actually inform you about who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, if you go to a lot of different areas now, it seems like if you ask people, so, tell me about yourself. Well, first you need to know that I'm insert sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't tell me fuck about you. And insert race. That still doesn't tell me fuck about you. Insert mental disorder. I know that you're fucking insane, but I knew that with the first two answers, and this isn't giving me any additional information. What do you like? What do you enjoy doing? What do you find interesting? These are questions that they don't really seem to touch upon with their answer of who they are. And if you don't touch upon those questions when answering who you are, it really makes it seem like you don't know who the fuck you are.
And it's always just like the shallow characteristics that they focus on.
Yep.
Like who I bang isn't all to do with my character.
Yeah.
You know, like I could bang anybody and be completely different from you.
Yeah.
And then at the same time be, you know, really similar if you look past those kinds of things. And they're always like, "Oh, well, that's what we want." I'm like, "Well, then why aren't you doing that?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, you focus on the things that you really think people give a shit about, and we don't.
Yeah, if you really wanted people to not give a shit about being gay, being lesbian, being trans, being whatever.
Yeah.
The way that you do that is just be a fucking person
And
that doesn't have to constantly say, by the way, I'm this. Just be a fucking person. And if it comes up, sure, say that you're that when it comes up. But if there's absolutely no reason to say that you're gay, don't just go around telling people that you're gay. It doesn't matter in the vast majority of situations. If I'm trying to, I don't know, if I pull over on the side of the road to help you change your tire because it got blown out on the highway, I don't need to know that you're gay in order to change your fucking tire. I need to know, okay, do you have a jack? Do you have a tire iron? I don't need to know what bits do you like to fuck or get fucked by.
And here's the thing. Here's the reality twist. Is the one thing that might actually have been interesting is something that we're frowned upon doing now. If you look like I do, so like say, and I'm gonna pick on you, Cryptic, because you're a minority at the moment. But say I decided that I wanted to know more about Vietnamese or Vietnam, or like maybe the food that you ate, that you remember your parents eating that came culturally from your region or something like that. If I look into that kind of shit, I get in shit for that now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I'm culturally appropriating, even though I might actually be showing appreciation, or I might just be interested in you as a person, or I might want to know a little bit more about maybe anything, you know, because the first way that people really learn about each other is from other people. It really is. You know, I could read books about Vietnam, but you know what I'm going to get? I'm going to get a lot of stuff that I'm not always going to understand, because sometimes having things put into context by a person who's from there makes a lot more sense to me. That's how a lot of people learn. Now, do I necessarily want to use Cryptic in that way? No, that would be wrong. Like, if the only reason I'm being friends with Cryptic is because I know that he's Vietnamese, that's disgusting.
No, that's kind of fucked.
That's just disgusting. You know, like that's just one part of him. Like, there's a lot to know about Cryptic. He's a whole person with a whole character and a whole shitload of jokes to back that up. And that's the thing that these people do. Like, they cut the most interesting things about people because they don't want to admit that they actually don't do any of the research. You know, they want all these amazing characters, but they can't create one of them for themselves because they've actually tied themselves into a box. It would absolutely be easy to go to Africa, go to any country in Africa, pick one, pick a tribe, because there's many tribes in all those countries. They're not just one singular group of people. Even in their own countries, they're not like that either. So maybe pick a country, pick a tribe, and ask them for a story. And maybe do that. Like, they used to do that kind of stuff. And it brought light to these communities. It actually brought some money to those communities. It actually got them some jobs. You know, but these people are so fucking selfish that they don't think, they pose. They don't do, they pose and speak about how they're posing. And instead they're like, well, we'll just replace the characters that already exist, as though that's not shady and kind of gross. And like that doesn't look like, oh, well, like, you know, these characters couldn't really exist in real life. But, you know, they probably already do. Mm-hmm. And we're throwing shade at them by not even just doing the work, or at least offering people the opportunity to. If you don't want me, a white person, to do it, then why not hire a black person to do it? There are plenty of black historians who are probably like, hey, I'm over here. I've got stories. Please take some.
I mean, shit, if you want to do a period piece about a royal of some sort, and you want to have it be about a black royal, don't choose Anne Boleyn. There's a fucking African king that crashed the global trade of gold by taking a single trip. And it hasn't recovered since. It's been over 1,000 years since this dude took his one trip. Or just shy of 1,000 years, actually. So, somewhere in like the 7 to 8, maybe 900 years since this one dude took one trip and crashed the price of gold globally. You want to talk about someone doing something fucking insane that was royal? How about that dude? You don't have to make him black. He was black. And that's an interesting story. Did any of you know that happened before I said that?
No. I had no idea.
Neither have I,
Yeah. And there used to be things that would actually kind of give you interesting stories from the past to connect this to games again. One of the games that I loved when I was growing up was Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego? Fantastic game series. The Where It Is were all amazing. And one of the characters that you meet, that you have to figure out what's going on and all that shit, is that African royal.
Well, that's a great way to learn about him.
Yep, because it stuck it in a game that was interesting for kids. And when you make education entertaining, don't just try to make entertainment educational, but make education entertaining. There's a difference between that. You can actually get people that are interested in learning, that like learning rather than just being bored out of their skull in yet another lecture by Mrs. Smuckatelli. That get them to actually be engaged.
Well,
and that game, I remember a bunch of different things from it, because there was that African ruler was one of the figures that you end up meeting in that game, and it had a bunch of different puzzle things that you had to solve as you went through the game. One of them was your characters were lost in a desert. You had a needle. You had a bit of magnetite, if I remember correctly. You had a bowl, you had a water skin, and a handful of other items. And you had to find your way out of the desert. Anyone know what you can do with those items that I listed really easy?
What?
Oh, you also had a little bit of cork, was one of the other items. You can make a compass.
Yep.
Oh, because it floats and is it magnetic to the pole? Because it's floating.
You take the sewing needle.
Yeah, put it on the cork.
And you rub the sewing needle with the magnetite. It's a naturally magnetic rock. Once you've rubbed the needle in the same direction, you don't do back and forth, you do one direction. You stick that on the cork or through the cork, and you set that in the water, and it'll turn based on the magnetic field of the Earth. So you will have it turn if you're above the hemisphere, north of the hemisphere, you'll have it start turning north. If you're south of the hemisphere, it'll start turning south.
You know, that's another fascinating thing about the 90s is that Carmen Sandiego, as far as the left is concerned, there hasn't been like a strong character that was female or female of color. And I know for some reason they like to shade the Hispanic ladies when it's convenient by forgetting that they're also ladies of color. But yeah, she was Hispanic, wasn't she? And I know she was kind of the villain, but she was still the main character. And if she wasn't tough.
it's like it's one of those villains where
She was cool.
yeah, she was cool because she was a thief, right?
Bitch stole the pyramids somehow.
And she's still like the moon.
Yeah, I
Or
think
did
so.
she
Stole all kind of crazy shit.
You know,
She stole my heart.
she was hot.
Aw.
I'm not a lesbian, but she was a hottie. She was.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah,
plenty of guys who had crushes on Carmen Sandiego, okay?
She stole
Sure they
the
did.
pyramids, the Sphinx, the fucking Washington Monument. She stole entire goddamn buildings. How the fuck do you steal entire goddamn buildings? At one point, I think in one of the games, she
Puts it in her purse.
Mount
that hard.
goddamn Everest.
That's excellent.
How
See,
the
I think
fuck do you
I
steal
used to watch the show, vaguely remember this, but I was a bit too young to really, and I can't even remember if my English was up to par yet at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember the show. I remember the song.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's one of those things where like it's an easy remake, but I wouldn't bring it up because at this point, everything they put their hands on, they just destroy because they don't get it, and that's the real truth is they don't get it. They've hired these kids who have been in their parents' circle for like forever, and now they're in the real world and they don't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand the jokes from before. They don't understand the 90s.
Yeah.
Because the 90s was actually the time where, in all honesty, we were making strides between making peace between different groups.
Mm-hmm.
Gays and people of color. Like, everywhere. It was just one of those things where, like, it was no longer really an issue. If you had friends on that you hung out with that were people of color, wasn't an issue. If you were dating someone who was a person of color, well, yeah, your family might give you some shit because culturally speaking, that's a thing. But most people who were strangers didn't give a shit. They were usually cheering you on.
And in the 90s, that was a rarity if your family would give you shit for that.
Yeah.
You have to go back probably 10, 20 years before that to when it was more common that your family would go, really? You're dating a black person?
You know, like, it really does feel like a time warp. Like, I feel like these people really don't remember the past, or like they were very sheltered when it was going on. And that's a possibility. Like, that is absolutely a possibility. If the only things you were watching growing up was Disney, I feel really bad for you. I really do. Because Disney was good, but honestly, Disney was kind of shady too. They've always been kind of shady. I'm sorry. I've always kind of thought that they were a little shady. Still amazingly talented people. 100%, I love The Lion King. Will always love The Lion King. But ever since then, I stopped watching. Actually, I stopped watching after Brother Bear because they got rid of the animation.
I never watched Brother Bear.
It was pretty, but it didn't have quite as much of the heart, I felt.
I didn't watch. I tend not to watch some of the animal ones, like Brother Bear. I didn't see a Spirit, Horse of the
Spirit was boring.
Something.
They
My best friend at the time, who was one of those horse nut girls, that like she was crazy over that movie, and I never watched it.
It was
she ruined
boring.
it for me without even watching it.
It was so boring. Like, the only thing it was just like really beautiful animation. No voice acting, and then just basically Bryan Adams.
Bryan Adams. That's who did the music. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with him, and I didn't have a problem with the concept. But the problem was that there was no one to really tell the story.
Yeah.
You know, and you're doing that with kids, and like kids, you know, some kids are like, oh, it's a pretty horse, la la la. Oh, look, the horses fell in love, la la la. But like, yeah, most kids don't have that attention span. And I watched it and I was like, this is really beautiful, but like this looks like a piece that you take to like a movie festival, but you shorten it.
Speaking of Bryan Adams, I'm gonna have a confession about one of my favorite songs of all time.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys remember this. All for Love. It was Bryan Adams, Rod Stewart, and Sting. It was the theme song for the Three Musketeers.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't blame you.
I love that. I love the movie, which I think it has nothing to do with the Three Musketeers. It's just a really fun, campy movie. But this song is so good. It is so like 90s. It has all the good parts of the 90s all rolled into one, like soppy but like dance at the same time. It's such a weird song.
Well,
what a weird trio.
There are worse songs you could have picked. That's not a bad one.
I just love it so much. That and then Sting's Kiss from a Rose. I love that too. It just, but yeah, Well, I think can you be Canadian and not like Bryan Adams? Is it? I think it's one of those things where it comes with your citizenship test.
It's not so much that as so much as where we are. It has to be played a certain amount of times. So because we have to play so many Canadian singers, and because there's only so many of us, it's just overplayed. I was actually going to say, don't feel bad for liking who you like, because I took one for the team, and I don't love her, but I was like, the shit going on with Britney is not fucking right. Doesn't look right.
I feel really sorry with you have to play a certain number of Canadian singers, because I can only think of one group off the top of my head that I'm going, fuck yeah.
Which one?
The rest of it, Great Big Sea.
Okay.
Oh, I haven't heard them on the radio for a long time.
Yeah, but the rest of them that are popping to my mind right away, I'm just going, man, that sounds like suicide.
Yeah, it kind of gets like that.
Justin Bieber on repeat.
No. Well, okay. He may or may not have some really good songs out right now.
I don't hate everything he's done, but at the same time, he's an exception to the rule. Because as far as we're concerned, he has used goods that you guys broke, and you can keep them.
Yeah, you guys fucked him up. Thanks a lot, Usher.
You guys,
that's
just
all
keep
on you.
That's
all on you, America.
But no, I don't hate everything.
We've got Dragonette from and Grimes from the East Coast. They're really cool if you're into that kind of music. Then you have the twins, which I never remember their names of, which are both lesbians, and they're twins, identical twins. They had really good music back in the day.
Yeah, the ones that just popping to my head were Bieber and Celine Dion on repeat.
Yeah,
well, of course, that's the only ones you would guys know.
What's her name? Alanis Morissette
Mm-hmm.
and
Shania Twain.
Isn't it
Gordon Lightfoot? No, if we're going back, Gordon Lightfoot, Smashing Pumpkins.
I like them though. I just wish they did more stuff.
Since Alanis Morissette's to blame on you guys, that means that it's your educational system that doesn't know what ironic is.
Yeah. Oh no, 100%. I'm sure we have depending on. See, I don't know where she went to elementary school, but yeah, that's our fault.
Like a black fly in your Chardonnay, isn't it ironic? No, that has nothing to do with irony. What the fuck are you talking about, you insane bitch?
Listen, she's angsting. You don't understand, Sanguine.
She's like, my life is so shit. This is so ironic. Can you just not this on my day? Yeah, that's
so
it rains on your wedding day. Isn't it ironic? No, that still isn't ironic. That's at most a misfortune.
That's someone who didn't properly check the forecast the week of their wedding.
Yeah, just every fucking thing in that song, I'm going, no, it isn't. But it's mildly obnoxious to at most a misfortune. Every single item that she mentions in that song.
I don't like that song anymore. But I can't even. I don't even remember if I like. The problem with Alanis Morissette is
She was catchy at the time. It was
Well,
fun. Like, it was a dumb song, but it was fun.
Yeah, and you know, you got Jagged Little Pill. That was like the It Girl album, but I was a bit young for it when it came out. But that doesn't mean I didn't grow up with her music. That wasn't something I had in the house.
I wish I could remember his name.
What song? She has the One Hand in My Pocket song. That's the one I like from her. I've got one hand in my pocket. The other one is, I don't know, Hailing a Taxi Cab, I think is one of the ones. That one's a good one. But yeah, the only reason I liked her a lot, she plays God, the personification of God in Dogma.
Yep.
So that was fun.
Yeah, that was a good moment. Dogma in general was fun.
Yeah.
Fucking Ken doll angels.
Yeah, there's a lot of artists that I wish I could remember their names off the top of my hat, but it's one of those things when I see them, I'm like, oh, I gotta save you to my wish list, and then I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there was a lot of us that like kind of. The thing is if we want notoriety and we want money, we have to cross the border.
Yeah, you just keep on giving us absolute fucking lunatics. We'll get an occasional one that still has a head on their shoulders, but most of the time, you just give us absolute fucking lunatics.
I mean,
what does it? Okay, we may give it to you, but what does it say about you guys that you accept them? Okay.
Hey, we're willing to light a firecracker for the explosion. It's fun.
Yeah, but it says a lot about us when the most normal out of all of us is that's crossed the border is William Shatner. And to be honest, as far as he's concerned, he's American.
Leslie Nielsen, isn't he Canadian?
Is Leslie Nielsen? Or was Leslie Nielsen, rather. We'll quickly check. I can't remember.
I have this feeling that he's Canadian.
Yeah, that's not to say that William won't be like, yeah, I'm Canadian.
Oh,
but,
he
like, as
was
far as he's
born in
concerned,
Regina, Saskatchewan.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
There's more of us than I think. You know, it's just like I said, yeah. Well, you know, it makes sense. I mean, honestly, we have so many connections with you guys in terms of what we do. It just
like I said, we occasionally get a sane one, and Leslie Nielsen and William Shatner are the occasional, apparently.
God, just looking at pictures of him, even when he's younger, I don't think I've ever seen him without white hair.
Yeah, he's one of those people that he hit like 80 at 20 and stayed that way.
Yeah. God, he's such a... I love him so much.
Just like Sir Patrick Stewart is another one that he hit 80 at 20 and has never aged a day since.
Let's be real. We are forgetting somebody. One of our remaining comedians, Rick Moranis, is our Betty White. He kind of is at this point.
He just was a decent fucking dude that made it big, and then tragedy struck, and he went, "Okay, my family needs me. I'm gonna step down."
Yeah.
And then he got assaulted in a New York subway.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Well, I think it's more of just it's not just that he got attacked, but like, you know, he was in the middle of talks for the new Ghostbusters movie too. So it was just kind of like, can you not? I mean, can you not do it anyway? But like,
what the fuck, man? What the fuck?
I don't doubt that he got more shade from his own crowd than anybody else, though, because even black people liked Rick Moranis. Just saying, a lot of them did. A lot of them grew up with that Canadian duo.
See, I grew up with him for the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movies.
Yep.
Like that was what I grew up with. I didn't realize it was made in 89. Wow. I didn't realize it was such an old movie.
And I just got a mental image that I did not expect to get due to this conversation. I just got the image of a dude in prison with his cellie going, "Well, it's that time. Zip. This is for Rick."
I I would not be surprised. You know, it's just one of those things where, like, I understand that some people have a vengeance against white people. I don't agree with it, but I'm white, so I'm probably biased. I don't necessarily want to be punched in the face, nor do I really want anyone to get punched in the face, period. But Rick has never done anything to anybody. And
no, he was a victim of chance. It's very possible that individual didn't even recognize who he was.
Yeah.
He was just a perfect target.
Yep. Old white guy with a hat, you know.
Yeah. Speaking of areas that have gone to absolute shit due to crime, shall we talk about the one almost comedy story that I have? That was just a what the fuck. I mentioned this before the stream to them, so this is of course the chief of the Department of Violence Prevention in Oakland, California, was mugged during an interview a couple weeks ago. He was on the stairs of the City Hall for Oakland, getting interviewed. It was live on air when a couple guys came up and started mugging them. Just what the fuck? That the guy in charge of violent crime prevention gets mugged at City Hall on the steps while being... This is a comedy sketch that just, no, this actually fucking happened somehow. How the fuck is this reality? But yeah, a couple guys tried to mug him and the news crew that was interviewing him. When a couple security guards noticed what the fuck was going on and saw them off. The two guys are still at large. And I have the official report. I have a report and the official statement from a couple of the people here if you want me to quickly read through it just as the fuck. Just after 6 p.m., police said in a statement that two suspects approached a cameraman filming during an interview at 3:09 p.m. before trying to take the camera at gunpoint. After a scuffle ensued, the armed security officer pulled his firearm out and directed the suspects to leave. The suspects immediately left the area without the camera and were still outstanding, the police said, at large, effectively. Officers, including a police spokesperson, responded to the scene. During an investigation, there were no injuries, police said. Please be advised that the suspects are still outstanding. I question their word. At large is a better phrasing than outstanding. It makes it sound like you're really complimenting them.
Yes, it does.
They did a perfect job. They're really outstanding criminals. Police said, we encourage everyone to be vigilant of their surroundings and report all crimes. Please stay safe. In a statement, an Oakland City spokesperson confirmed that the Department of Violence Prevention Chief Guillermo Cepedes, whatever the fuck that surname is, it's something foreign, I don't speak it, was the person being interviewed outside City Hall. So yes, during an interview with the chief of the Department of Violence Prevention, the camera crew and the guy were victims of a would-be mugging that was broken up by security personnel. Not by guards that they had hired. No, just the City Hall security officer going...
I feel like you want to sing under your breath. Now, isn't that ironic?
This is actually ironic.
Ironic.
So
God.
I actually do want to mention a short little story. This is technically old, but I haven't talked to Sora in a long time. So I don't know if I mentioned this one to her, but I still giggle every time I think about it. I know I told you about it, Sanguine, because we looked it up that night, and that was amazing, and I appreciate you for it. But this one time last month in Toronto, John Tory thought that on Canada, like one of our official days, that he would hoist a menstrual purse flag up in front of their Parliament building.
A what?
A menstrual purse flag. It looks exactly like what it sounds like.
Are you also wondering
remember
what
that
makes
flag.
it a purse flag, Sora?
Yeah.
Oh,
Because I could
it's,
understand the menstrual part, the purse part, I still don't.
I did look that up,
look
so
at
I did
look at his
find it out.
pattern.
There is actually a logical reason behind it. It's just one of those things where, like usual, Ontario and especially Toronto, not necessarily all of Ontario, but especially Toronto, they don't understand context and how doing things kind of makes them look like a pervert. But a menstrual purse is actually something that's meant to go towards homeless women or women who are low income.
Oh, like a period bag. So like
Yes.
it's like a bag that supplies all the your week's worth of hygiene products, basically.
And he could have done that in front of the place where you would actually go to get that, and actually, maybe bring attention to the place and actually do something, because that's actually not a bad thing to do. It's not a bad thing to be like, hey, the ladies in our community could use some help. Maybe donate to this cause, or if you don't want to donate money, women would be happy to donate hygiene products to something like that.
Yeah. I didn't even know that something like that existed, honestly.
Yeah, that there's absolutely nothing wrong with bringing attention to something like that. But what he did was he hoisted a flag that kind of looked like a lady had run it between his legs. It was like, instead of honoring our troops, we're going to honor our ladies today with Menstrual Purse Day.
Yeah, when she showed the picture, Sora, it kind of looked like a woman who is going through that time of the month, grabbed one of her nice, clean, white linens and flossed with it, and then rung it up a flagpole.
Oh, gross. Okay.
And
okay, there's nothing. Okay, I say gross. I am not scared of blood. For anyone listening, there is nothing mature about being ew, it's blood. No, as a menstruating person, that doesn't. What grosses me out? I'm being PC, okay?
That's why I'm laughing.
Still the same area of your body from where you do the other two things that are both kind of nasty, And
but the thing is that what Sanguine just described, and then, as you said, put it on a flagpole, even if it's just, that's what it looks like. It's not an actual thing, I understand. But that is not something that is, there's one way to bring it out into the public and have frank discussion about there's some people who are, hey, we have teens on the street, you can get all sorts of infections, they don't have proper hygiene, let alone adult women on the streets having the same issues. And then you hear about the monstrosities of menstruating girls in third world countries dying because they're exposed to the elements. That's one conversation. This is stupid.
It's such an easy fix. It's like, we have food bins at grocery stores. What would be really nice is if we knew things like that. Because if I
buy a pack of pads, donate it to the pad bin. Yeah.
Like one of the stores that I go to, like my mom and I kind of buy our groceries together, because one of the deals is if you reach a certain amount of money, you get a free item, and sometimes the free item is something useful. Sometimes it's something like that. Like sometimes it's things like a whole box full of suntan lotion. I don't always need all that, so I donate that kind of thing. Because I figure, like, it's not just food that homeless people or people who are down on their needs need. It is all sorts of things. So like these people have really good intentions, but the people pushing it are gross as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is that there needs to be a menstrual product version of like Tom's shoes. You could call it Tom's rags, and you buy one and they give one.
No, it'll be like Tom's cups, because that's what they would be giving out, because they want to be eco-friendly.
The menstrual cups, yeah.
Yeah, which are, if you want to talk about things that are terrifying, look that up. And the stories of some people, because our biology inside, how should I put it? The depths of each individual person is different, meaning where things can get stuck is different and can
Mm-hmm.
get very painful. So yeah, those are fun things to read about.
I'll stick to good old school tampons and pads. You know, like they have a tail. You just make sure you take them out within a certain period of time, and you clean up after yourself. And when you shower, hose down there. Wash with your hands and soap and hose. I know there's some dudes who are like, yes, Jen is talking about what she does in the shower. But yeah, this is things that you should do. And if you're a man, you should also hose down there too.
Just how about hard line? Please, if you can, on as a regular basis, have just good hygiene.
Please clean your penis. I'm sorry.
For yourself, if for no one else.
See, this is just reminding me of medical horror stories that I've heard.
Oh, God.
Like the rotting menstrual product being removed from someone.
Oh, or people not knowing they have to remove casts and they wear casts on for like years.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
Those are fun to read about.
Though I still think one of the worst things that I've ever witnessed was someone pull out a fully inflated fully calf.
A what?
So, are you familiar with what Foley catheters are?
No.
So, they are these long tubes that get inserted in the urethra, and they're pushed up until they enter the bladder. Then they have a balloon that you fill once they get into the bladder.
Oh.
So that they are held in place.
Oh, a friend of mine had this. Yes, and then it was fun because we could feel her pee.
Yep. So the way that you would remove this is you would first deflate the balloon and then pull the Foley cath out.
Mm-hmm.
I saw someone pull their own Foley cath out, and they didn't fuck with deflating the balloon. So, you know how like snakes can unhinge their jaws in order to eat things that are larger? Yeah, I saw a man do that, only it wasn't his mouth.
Oh, no.
And I was in the back of the ambulance with them, going, oh, fuck! Because that looked painful as shit.
Why would you do that to yourself, man?
Severely altered mental status?
Okay.
Yeah.
At least maybe they didn't feel the pain?
As they disemboweled themselves, yes.
Yeah, it was a what the fuck when I saw that happening. Thankfully, we were already going to the hospital, so it just became once we got to the hospital, they pulled that out of themselves. The balloon's still inflated. Yes.
Oh. I'm looking at pictures of the balloon, right? And just just the idea of pulling it through your urethra. That is a tiny opening, at least in the female too. And you have so much more space to pull it through for a man. Like you're taking it takes a while to get out.
Yeah. It's, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've seen them. They're a bit smaller than a golf ball. The balloon, that is.
Ew, I've fallen down the Google Images search a rabbit hole, and I'm now looking at calcified catheters.
Oh yeah, those are terrifying.
Oh God.
You know,
I can smell it, but really I can't, because I don't think I've ever smelled something that putrid. But at the same time, I can almost smell it.
You know, as weird as that is, it's not as weird as that one time on YouTube where I got lost in the weird section. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there was this one documentary on this lady who had been pregnant for about 40 years because she didn't pass it. Basically, it kills the infant, obviously, because it smothers it. And then her womb actually ejected it out of the womb, and it basically turned into a giant gallstone. And then, like 40 years later, she realized she wasn't feeling very good and had it removed. And they were like, "Yeah,
She had an ossified, aborted, or spontaneously aborted fetus, effectively?
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
I guess that's a thing. Like it's not very common. Like every once in a while, something happens with the uterus and like a baby can grow outside of it. It doesn't really go very well because your body kind of reacts to that like your immune system does.
Well, the way that the egg escapes is the fallopian tubes aren't welded to the ovaries.
Yeah.
They have a floating connection.
Mm-hmm.
So the egg, rather than going into the fallopian tube and going where it's supposed to, can just kind of fuck off into the body somewhere.
Yeah. Normally the body just deals with it because the immune system just does that, but
Yeah. But that would have meant that not only did the egg fuck off somewhere else, but then the sperm swam deep enough to find where the fuck the egg had fucked off to.
yeah, this lady, for her, it was a known thing. Like she had gone through the whole pregnancy. Like she knew she was 9 months pregnant. Had gone through labor and then was just like she was so it was a she was foreign. Like I can't remember what country she was from. It was like South America somewhere. But for her, it was just one of those things where, like, taboo-wise, if she'd had that child, her whole life would have been kind of ruined. And instead of just getting a proper abortion, because they don't do that there, like, it's just one of those no taboos. She just didn't give birth to it, so the thing died inside of her. Which
wait, was it that the egg did not go to the uterus, or did it?
No, it went to the uterus.
Oh, then it wasn't what I was talking about.
No. Her story led me to other stories like hers, where the egg had done what you'd said. Like one example was this lady from England who'd had triplets, but the third one had gone outwards. The two were in her uterus, and then the third one was outside of her uterus. And she still managed it, but it was just one of those medical things where, like,
you have to cut them open and
really intensive.
Find the baby.
Yeah.
There's a baby somewhere attached to some organ. Let's find it.
Yeah. The first story was just entirely unique. Like hers was just. But it's not the first time that they found stuff like that. Like it's just one of those things where when they find similar stories, it's more historical bodies. Like, you know. The reality of our history is that life hasn't always been kind for children or for just humans in general, and for any living creature that's lived on our planet. So it's just her story was just like she was alive to talk about it, and it's mixed feelings from people. Like some people have sympathy for her because honestly, as sad as it is, if she'd been able to abort it, regardless of what your feelings are on this situation, it would have been a lot less cruel.
And for those interested, the general term for a pregnancy not in the uterus is, of course, ectopic pregnancy. The most common of those is a tubal or fallopian tubal pregnancy.
Yeah, those aren't always.
Yeah, those you have to go in soon, or else it just gets ripped apart.
Yeah, her story situation is one of those ones where, like, I wouldn't necessarily have judged her for her situation, just because, like, when it comes to abortion, I do understand that there's certain circumstances where even I can understand why they would do it. Hers was one of those rare ones, like, raped by family too. So I was like, yeah, you're in that category of, like, I kind of get where your situation, sympathies for her. But it was just, yeah, it's weird. The human body and what we can do, what our bodies can do, I find that stuff interesting.
Mhm.
I wouldn't do it as a job, but I do like the morgue mystery stuff. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm definitely fascinated by forensic pathology, which is why it's a field that I ultimately want to go into.
Well, tell me all your stories when you do, because I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's cool shit, and I think I've told the story about how I found out that I was interested in the topic. Didn't I? At some point? I think I did. Or do you guys want me to quickly recount it?
I've recounted. I may not have been there for that.
So
Yeah,
I found out that I had an interest in it when I was in 11th grade. The high school that I was going to when I was in 11th grade had a forensic science class, so I took it.
Oh.
Because why the fuck not?
That's so lucky.
Yeah, it was weird that they had it, so fuck yeah, I'm going to take it. So I took the class, and the teacher for that class was absolutely insane in the best possible ways. I mean, she made Barbie crime scenes for people.
Oh, I love like the Barbie
awesome.
dioramas.
That's
Yep,
fantastic.
it's
Oh,
dioramas of crime scenes. Some of them were her own ideas for crime scenes. Some of them were actual historical crime scenes. Like she had a couple that were based off of the Sharon Tate crime scene.
cool.
And one of the things that she did was she had a bunch of connections with people that were working forensics in the area. And she got in touch with them. She got two of them to come in and talk to the class. She got a coroner and a forensic pathologist to come in. And they came in, started talking about their most interesting and weird cases. The coroner gave a bit more straightforward presentation, really interesting, really informative. The pathologist did something kind of strange with his, which I really enjoyed, which was he would go through a crime scene telling all the information that he had received when he was heading out to the scene, all the evidence that was collected at the scene, and all of the results from each of the additional bits of testing that he had ordered. And then he would ask us what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it was during that one that the first one that he did was he'd been called out to the scene first thing in the morning. A body had been found near an overturned vehicle before dawn. He was there at like 8 or 9 a.m. So there was a revolver sitting on the inside of the roof of the car because it was flipped over. And there was one shot missing from it. He showed us the images of the man's head. He showed us the images of the vehicle. And in the vehicle, there was a window that was just completely smashed out. That was the passenger side back window.
Mm-hmm.
He showed us other bits of evidence. The outside of the car, there was a dent above the driver's side car door. There was the driver's side window was down. The passenger side window was down. The one window was blown out. Showed us the area around where the vehicle was found. Gave us all the information they had received about the guy, how he had been known to have suicidal ideation and was having a really rough time of things, so that ideation had been getting worse recently. He had clocked out late from a night shift at this one factory. And the last time that anyone had seen him, he was getting into his car to drive home.
Mm-hmm.
He showed us the skull fragments that they recovered from the scene and all the crime scene pictures. There was no sign of any breaking. There was no sign of anything like that. Then he went through the Tock's report. Nothing came up in the Tock's report other than just like coffee and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, he showed us the external examination and the internal examination, then went, okay, so what happened? And a bunch of people in the class raised their hands and said he shot himself, and that's how the window got blown out. And he went, okay. Anyone else have any ideas? I raised my hand, and I said, he said that the last time that anyone had seen him, he had been driving home the night before, and it was really late. He had just worked an extended shift. Yes. And can you quickly go back to the crime scene picture? He went back to the crime scene picture. Behind the flipped vehicle, there was this large kind of slanted rock.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, okay, so I think he might have been driving home, was getting tired, rolled down his windows in order to stay awake, kind of propped himself up as he was driving, dozed off. His car started going off the road, hit the rocks, started the flip. There was a dent above the car door. Mm-hmm. I think his head kind of bobbled outside of the car, and as it rolled, that dent was from his head between it and the ground, because the damage to the head does not look like a gunshot wound. Mm-hmm. It looks more like someone blew up a toothpaste tube by crushing it.
Lovely.
And he just kind of went, huh. Anyone else agree with that or have their own ideas? And everyone went, no. And he went, okay, you were right. That's exactly what I ruled it as well. Because, yeah, this is not a gunshot wound. Those skull fragments, that's from the skull being crushed in the roll. And all the other injuries are consistent with that. The revolver, best anyone can guess, is that he had it underneath the passenger seat. And when the car flipped, it came out, hit the top of the car, blew out the window.
Yeah.
And then he continued on to the next incident. And again, pretty much all of his cases, like I said, there were some of the weirdest that he had been called out to. So all of them had things that seemed really straightforward, but none of them were. Because the next one was like a house fire, and someone had been pulled from the house fire, completely burned to shit from the house fire. And he showed the internal, external, all that, gave all the information that he had, and asked what happened. And everyone else went, well, they died in the fire. The thing was that in the trachea, there was blood in the trachea. There wasn't any smoke in the trachea.
Okay.
No soot. So I raised my hand and I went, someone stabbed them and then tried to start a fire in order to hide the murder. And someone had stabbed the person, tried to set a fire in order to hide the murder. And the thing that gave it away was the blood being in the trachea without any soot being in the trachea. Mm-hmm. Because if they had died during the fire, they would have inhaled smoke, soot would have settled, and there wouldn't be any blood. Mm-hmm. So just each of the cases, it was, I would raise my hand and I figured out what the case was. And he just kept on going, yeah, you might want to look into this as a career, because good catches.
Well, it's one of those things where sometimes it's easy to look at a picture and think like, oh, well, this would be the easiest scenario. And I think the better training is to think the opposite. Mm-hmm. Look for what really is actually happening. Like, really look at the whole picture and really take note of everything. But
Mhm.
the part about forensics that I like the most, and this is because I'm still a history buff at the end of the day, is when you mix the two. Like when you take old dead bodies, like
like the Iceman autopsy.
yeah, stuff like that, or even just old war fields, and you take them out and you really see what happened and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's always really more fascinating because the more information we know about how bodies work now, the more it is to see what actually happened. And I pour over that stuff all the time, even if it's just the diseases, like when they pour over like the Black Death and stuff like that. I know that nowadays they can still find out more information based off of what they do with forensics.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it does help us find murderers, especially nowadays, because like I've been watching a lot more channels who are actually sharing the ones where they've been catching people.
Mm-hmm.
Even from like the 20s and stuff like that. I'm like, good, thank God, finally. Even if it's an old man getting justice, I don't care. Like, that person didn't need to die, and I know you thought you could get away with it, but no, you can't.
I still say one of the coolest fucking apprehensions of anyone within modern time was... Have any of you ever heard of the List family murders?
I think so. I can't remember. Like, if you describe it, I will probably start going, yes, yeah.
So the List family had this enormous house.
Okay.
Absolutely beautiful. It included a fucking ballroom. And it was John List, his wife, his children, and it was either his mother or his mother-in-law all lived in this massive fucking estate, effectively. And from all appearances, happy family. Then one night, their car disappeared. No one saw their car again. No one saw John going to work or coming home from work. And no one saw the kids or the wife or the mother. So they went to kind of figure out what's going on. So they called police to do a wellness check. And police entered the house after getting all the go-ahead to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And started searching through the house. The creepy thing was when they got to the ballroom, which is where they found the bodies of everyone except for John List. John List had apparently left music playing in the ballroom, and it was the song "We'll Meet Again," if I remember correctly, was what was playing when the detectives entered the ballroom to find the bodies.
Yeah.
He had cranked the AC as high as it could go and left them in sleeping bags in the ballroom after killing them. So they started a manhunt. They couldn't find him. Could not find the man. And it started to go cold, and they had pretty much given up hope of ever finding John List. He had skipped town and nowhere to be seen. By the way, this happened in... Let me quickly look up the year of the List family murders, because I want to say it was in the 60s, maybe? Yeah, it was 71. 71 he did this. So he escaped, disappeared. No one knew where the fuck he was. But it stayed a active but cold case. And everyone's familiar with America's Most Wanted, the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So this was one of the cases that they talked about on America's Most Wanted in its early days. So they had commissioned, the show and the police jointly commissioned, a forensic sculptor to make a bust of what they think John List would have looked like at the time. So like I said, this happened in 71. This bust was made, I want to say it was 2005, 2006, something in there. So he had to age up the bust over 30 years. The forensic sculptor got in touch with a forensic psychologist, and the psychologist worked up a profile on John List, used that to help feed information to the sculptor, and the sculptor consulted a bunch of other people, medical experts, to see how various scars would have aged over time and whatnot.
That's amazing.
Went through all that process, and when the episode aired, they showed it on air, the bust, and said, if you've seen this man, please report, and all that shit that America's Most Wanted always did. Oh, sorry. I just double-checked the times to make sure I was thinking right. He was on the lam for just shy of 20 years when he was arrested. So it was in the 90s.
Jesus Christ. Mind you, this is a time before drones and constant internet access and, cameras everywhere. So it's easy. It's hard to think of it now, but really it probably wasn't that difficult if you worked cash-based, and
even the genetic stuff was still kind of new.
Yep.
You know, all that was still kind of trial and error, and even the
they didn't even have any databases yet, did they? Yeah. In like the 70s and stuff.
No, it was all
not
paper.
Really. Yeah, it was
all paper.
Paper, effectively. Yeah. But yeah, it was in 1990. Let me quickly double check the date of when the.
And upon reflection, a lot of it was not really good police work. Not always, but sometimes it was. Like, you could see where a lot of the times it was handing it over to other people, and it wasn't until handing it over to other people where things actually start getting done, or where they see, things that were overlooked or things that were kind of. So. You know what I mean, Sanguine.
I just looked up the exact date. It was 1989 that the episode of America's Most Wanted aired. It was during its first year on air. They commissioned this bust made. The forensic sculptor really goddamn worked his ass off on the sculpture. And they showed it at the end of the episode of America's Most Wanted, saying, if you've seen this man, please report any incidents to
669
police. And they got a call that night. The night that the episode aired, they got a call from someone saying that they think they've seen John List.
Oh.
But he's not called John List. So they gave information, and the police went to check, and holy shit, it's John List. So they arrest him, and in the recording of them arresting him, they show what he was dressed like and what he looked like. And let me quickly see if I can find the side-by-side comparison. Because there's a side-by-side of John List, the sculpture, and John List, the man when he was arrested. And there was one difference between the two. And it was the color of the tie. That was the only difference between John List and the sculpture of John List, was the color of the fucking tie. that was worn at the time. And he had the same color of tie. It was just not the one that he wore that day. So let's see. Yep, this is a good image of it. Let me pull this up. And first, let me open this up in a new window so that it's only the image. Okay, yeah, that's going to be good.
And I'm sorry if you hear any snoring in the background. I'm sitting beside my dog, and she is very deeply snoring.
Nice.
That's okay. I find that adorable.
Because I just realized, like, that's really loud. I can hear her through my headphones.
There it is.
Amazing. Look at that. Holy shoot.
So on the left is the bust.
It just slightly wider, like they anticipated more weight. Yeah. Amazing.
Well, that's just the angle. Because if John List was looking forward, his face is identical to the sculpture. And like I said, the only thing when they arrested him that was different from him as they arrested him versus him as the bust was he was wearing, I think, a blue tie when he was arrested, and his bust has a red tie. But the suit color that they had him in for the bust was the exact same suit color when he was arrested. The style of glasses are the exact same. The way that he was wearing his hair, as you can see from the pictures, is the exact same. Amazing. Everything was just nailed. The only thing was blue tie versus red tie during the arrest. It was one of the most insane things that the artist was able to get that fucking close.
Yeah.
And it became this enormous feather in the cap of America's Most Wanted. Because, like I said, that was the very first year that America's Most Wanted had aired. They did the List family murders. They showed that bust. And then that goddamn night that it aired, they got a call that led to the arrest of John List after almost 20 years on the lam.
That is, see, this is just amazing. I love that kind of stories. That, I mean, it really is like once in a million that something like that would work. That the right person watched the show.
Right time, right place, and then you just feel glad, finally.
Well, I did look it up. He lived to the ripe old age of 82.
Died in prison, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, prison hospital, I guess.
Yeah.
Complications due to pneumonia. You know, he didn't exactly. He managed to kick around quite a bit longer.
Yep.
Oh, rotten old sod.
Yeah, he had been able to avoid the death penalty, if I remember correctly. He pled effectively post-traumatic and obsessive-compulsive. And that combo had led him to kill his family because he had just lost his... I'm trying to remember from ages ago. I think it was that he had just lost his job. And he said that he had a psychotic break, killed his family, came to after killing his family, realized what he had done. So that's when he said that he turned down the air conditioning so that the bodies would last as long as they could before being found. And he disappeared into the night. Then he changed his name, changed everything that he could except for his appearance and how he dressed, apparently. And started life under that new name. I think he was married at the time of his arrest. I think she divorced him shortly after finding out what happened to his previous family, which
Can you imagine
hope so.
what a horrifying thought? Because like for all we know, they had a loving relationship, right?
Yep.
Or at least he faked one enough. And how do you, as the spouse, like, you're not a victim per se in the situation, like nothing's happened to you, maybe nothing would have ever happened to you, but then how can you go on with your life? Probably lots and lots of therapy.
and also guilt, because even though you're not associated with it, even though you weren't a part of the situation, here you were living with this guy for all this time, and you had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And that even though you're completely innocent of it, people still feel guilt. It's like, if I'd just known sooner, I could have turned him in, and they could have faced justice sooner.
Oh, and from the airing,
was there any
to be had? Yeah.
Go ahead.
From the airing of the episode to the arrest was a week. So, very first year of America's Most Wanted, and they managed to lead to the apprehension of a man who had been on the lam for damn near 20 years a week after their episode came out. Like I said, it was a massive feather in America's Most Wanted's cap. It was one hell of a start. That's one show that I'm curious why they stopped doing it, because I don't think it's still airing.
I think it's because too many people were letting their too young of age children watch it, because let's be real, a lot of parents don't pay attention to what their children watch. And as cool as a show as that was, I do know kids who would watch it and then have nightmares. Because the real stories, like those murderers did really happen. So when kids see that and they're like, reality.
I love unsolved mysteries. I love that show.
Mm-hmm.
We coddle kids too much, is basically what I'm saying.
The one thing that I do remember that was kind of a negative side effect of America's Most Wanted was their reenactors had a habit of getting the police called on them.
Can you imagine? You're just, man, I'm just an actor. Like, I'm just trying to pay the rent, dude. I'm not like the killer.
Yep.
I saw you on TV, though. You killed those people. Ma'am, I'm an actor.
Yeah, there was one incident that I know because it hit news where one of the reenactors got tackled by a group of like 6 guys, and police arrived only to find out that no, he is actually just an actor. You could let the dude up and let him go back up to his fucking life. You did not just catch one of the most wanted people in America by bum rushing him with 6 dudes.
Is he okay? Because, like, you can break your neck that way.
He was banged up, but not broken. It was more of the what the fuck was the issue with that. But yeah, it was something that was not unusual for the people that were the doubles in America's Most Wanted. They had the police called on them routinely because people would go, I saw them in that show, not realizing that they saw them doing a reenactment of a crime 20 years ago.
It gets better. I just found an article from 2012. Police arrested the actor who played a jewel thief in a TV crime reenactment after a tipster mistakenly identified him to cops as the real criminal.
Yep.
It happened in Germany last week, so this is in 2012, when an identified viewer dropped a dime on a man he recognized at the train station in Stuttgart as the thief he had seen several weeks earlier in the TV program Aktensichten XY, which is Germany's version of America's Most Wanted. The show appealed to the public for leads on the thieves who had robbed a jewelry store in Kryn, Germany, several hundred miles away. The only problem was that the man was the actor who'd been hired to play the thief on the show. Suddenly, 2 officers were standing behind me, actor Aaron Defant said. They demanded my ID. I asked them why, but they didn't answer. cops took him to the police station for questioning, where Defan said he was able to convince them he was just an actor before they were about to put him in a cell. Oh, Germany.
Oh, and I found out that America's Most Wanted is still on air.
Oh, okay.
I just looked it up going, is it still on air? Because I haven't heard anything about it in ages, and I remember it used to be a really big thing that people would actually tune in to see America's Most Wanted. And also, good goddamn, the show has led to a lot of people being arrested. As of April 20th, 2021, so just earlier this year, it has led to the arrest of 1,190 people.
Wow. How many were convicted, though?
Let me see if I can find a stat for that. Oh, and I was correct in remembering that it had been canceled. So it was from 1988 to 2011, then got canceled, then got brought back, and actually it's getting brought back this year. So from 2011 to 2021. So it was canceled, and now it's coming back. Awesome.
Cool.
And let's see. How many convictions? Can I find a stat for that? Okay. So let me click this, see if this has the actual number of convictions.
That is always interesting to, because you can arrest people, sure, but can they get the enough evidence in front of a judge to actually convict? But there's still, I do enjoy those. It's the hope that people get justice for the murdered, that
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and apparently, so a couple interesting things about the show. Of that number of people that I said that it had led to the capture of, it helped catch 17 of the FBI's most wanted fugitives during its run.
Excellent.
And apparently, Joe Walsh, the guy who headlined the show, maintained his own list of most wanted, as well as looked at the FBI most wanted list. So his list was America's Most Wanted Dirty Dozen, which he routinely updated. And apparently, at one point, a group of prisoners turned in a fellow inmate after seeing an episode of America's Most Wanted.
Oh, that sucks. I wonder what he did. If the crime wasn't too horrible, I wonder what the heck the guy did for the criminals to decide to rat on him.
Let's see. I'm going to see if I can figure out what that crime was. I can find the guy's name, and apparently he was in prison for burglary at the time that he was turned in for what he did on the episode of America's Most Wanted. Let's see what the criminal was, or what the crime was, rather. And he was turned in by his fellow inmates when they were watching America's Most Wanted his face flashed upon the screen. He tried to turn off the TV in time, but failed, and the offenders immediately finked him out to the security.
That's funny. I like that. That guy had a bad day.
So, apparently, he was arrested for burglary, and he was wanted for armed bank robbery. That was his crime on America's Most Wanted. So yeah, they turned over an armed bank robber because he was currently doing a sentence for burglary. And it was the other offenders. Being a correction officer, that just... I would bust a gut if that had happened while I was there. Just
it does tickle, doesn't it? It's excellent.
Oh, and apparently when the show was canceled, and it was canceled, it's been canceled several times apparently in its run. It was first canceled in 1996, and the police as well as viewers started sending in the "what the fuck, why did you cancel this?" messages to Fox, who was running the show.
That's a good question.
And
I can't see it have it too much of a budget that needed for something like that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was apparently Fox got a shit ton of law enforcement agencies contacting them, going, "Why did you cancel this?" They got letters from 55 members of Congress asking why the fuck they canceled it, 37 governors, and then a shit ton of, it was over 200,000 American citizens wrote in saying, "What the fuck? Why?" So they brought it back 4 weeks later.
Good. Yeah, because those shows are excellent, and I can't see them having... Now, the amount of research needed to write is a lot, sure, and you have the reenactors and stuff like that, but that can't cost that much. It's not like they have any super special effects.
We have shows like Game of Thrones, which I can't imagine that thing was cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's not Game of Thrones, that's for sure.
You know, and I mean, I don't mean to throw that one out there, but like, I can't imagine that was... You know, there's a lot of really expensive shows out there. Like, so like when they try to justify the money, and you're like,
it's not. It's a weak excuse. Now, if they said, "Oh, no one's watching it, we literally have 0 ratings," then you kind of understand, because they're still beholden to a board that, you know, and dividends.
Well, there's visual proof now. There's visual proof now that, you know, it didn't work. But I mean, they hold on to Batwoman forever, so I mean, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anywhere that lists how many convictions came out of it. There have been a couple times where the person was arrested and has been acquitted. One of them was a rather high-profile case where the man was accused of, I believe it was rape and murder. And all the evidence was pointing to him right up until they got the DNA. And then it became, "Oh, sorry, sir. You're free to go." Because, yeah, it was not only not a match, it was so absurdly different, it wasn't even in the right ballpark. But yeah, I'm not seeing anywhere that gives the number of convictions.
That's okay. I'm sure, like, of that huge number of arrests, there's probably a good chunk of convictions, because at the end of the day, they probably had enough evidence to make an appeal, right? Like for example, the John List, right? Like his particular case. So I'm sure there's other similar ones where they have a ton of evidence. So
yeah, like I said, they've apparently led to an obscene number of arrests, because that is over 1 arrest per episode that they did.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, it's
Since
just notoriety. Notoriety does a lot.
Yeah.
And people don't really like to think about having murderers on their street. Like, people would like to live in a world where they don't have to be afraid of their neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know that we can't live in that world right now, but we'd like to. So, at the very least, we could try to get these people off the streets and stop them from doing it again, or at least influencing other people too. And the other thing too is locating other bodies. It's probably the only reason I would hold on to a person if they're a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so you can try to do your best to get the bodies back. I don't know. I know that's like probably the hardest thing to do when you have to work with somebody who's like a slime ball like that, but
Oh, a good number of them have tried to withhold
the
locations of victims.
Oh yeah, they always
for
yeah.
bargaining in order to avoid death penalty and shit like that. And I just noticed the time. It is past that time. Shall we go around the horn for parting words?
Sure.
Who wants to go first?
Good night.
Short and sweet.
I guess I'll go next. Well, I had fun and good night. And I have one last request, and that is like when Cryptic says good night, he has to tell us about Loki first, because he hasn't done that yet.
I agree.
Loki is doing fine. He's a little shitbag, but he begs for his treats today. And good night.
I was half expecting Loki's doing fine. He just takes 15 more minutes before this dish is done.
Oh my god.
Don't tempt me.
And like I said, I'm topping and tailing the show with this. It should be next week that the final bit of scheduling change for the minions, at least for this string of changes, takes full effect. Once again, I am no longer going to be the Wednesday keeper. I'm going to be moving to Fridays. The one-ton hammer is going to be taking over Wednesdays with JenTMaxi and Terry Diamantis. And Thursday will be a wildcard night. So again, one-ton hammer Wednesdays, wildcard Thursdays, and Sanguine Fridays. Hopefully from next week on. And with that, I'll leave off with my standard. If you're passionate about something, make sure that you devour it. Don't let it devour you. Have a good night, all. The zoo is closed.
Good night.
I always have 20 seconds, so I'm just going to say, guys, after this show, don't go looking for Monkey, because he's going on a long weekend date with his wife.